Good day, everyone. Welcome to Real Conservative Headline News. I'm your host, Nathaniel Rajkumar. Starting off locally here in Trinidad and Tobago. Former Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley, the Emperor of Trinidad and Tobago. He still is Emperor, you know? He still is Emperor. Has defended the People's National Movement's record in Tobago, highlighting what he described as sustained development and legislative gains during the party's time in office. In a social media post, Dr. Rowley pointed to what he said were key parliamentary actions, including a 6.4% budgetary allocation secured through a joint select committee and extension of Tobago's marine jurisdiction from 6 miles to 11 miles. He said the response to those proposals was a resounding reject the bill. Dr. Rowley also listed several development projects and initiatives he attributed to the PNM's tenure in Tobago, including new ferries, new offshore patrol vessels, and new police stations in Roxborough and Chevron, and major infrastructure works such as the Roxborough Administrative Complex, Hospital, and Fire Station. He further cited the A.N.R. Robinson International Airport Terminal upgrade, expansion of the Tobago House of Assembly structure, increased administrative authority, gas-based electricity expansion, and the desilting of the Hillsborough Dam to improve water storage. Rowley said that despite these developments, the response had been political rejection and disrespect, or you can't disrespect the great emperor and his party, you know. He added that what he described as no remaining PNM representation in Tobago, the current administration had delivered what he called a 100% increase in the cost of travel between Trinidad and Tobago. Number one, cost has nothing to do with Farley Augustine in any case. That is because of the transport minister or the Kamala Prasad administration deciding that certain things need to be done. At least, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Farley had anything to do with the increase in cost, especially when it pertains to Caribbean Airlines. I heard that the ticket fee is going to be extremely much higher now. I don't really like what is taking place. I believe that the government is supposed to continue to subsidize it. And you can't say you have a subsidy and then saying that CAL making a loss. Manage CAL properly along with the subsidy to ensure that it begins to make a profit. But you cannot be placing the financial burden once again on the pockets of the citizens, on the backs of the citizens, in order to ensure that CAL begins to make a profit. But so Rowley stated some really good things there, you know, no lie. But the reality is, in spite of all that good, it was overshadowed by 10 years. As a matter of fact, when in Tobago, I think it was almost about 20 years of extreme corruption and incompetence. You say the PNM, even Manning did some good, you know. Eric Williams did some good as well. But the amount of corruption and the amount of neglect and abuse of power that takes place under the PNM, that's why Tobagonians rejected you all. Not because Tobagonians love the PNM. They love PNM just like how Trinidadians love the PNM Rowley. It's not because of that. It's because of all the good that you mentioned there. Was that sufficient for Tobagonians to say, you know what, we voted for PNM again. We born PNM and we will die PNM? No. There was too much of neglect and corruption that overshadowed the little good that you mentioned. Because that's just a few things. You're talking about, that's not even 5 years ago, people. You're talking about PNM was in office in Tobago for about 20 years. If not 20 years, exact close to 20 years. And that's why people said enough is enough. You're voting for Farley. That is why. Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, Dr. Rudal Munilal, has confirmed a 5.5% increase in oil production in less than a year. A development he described as a significant achievement. Yes, definitely. Because remember, the PNM patriots and PNM itself was saying how we don't have enough oil to be able to, there's no need to reopen the refinery here in Trinidad and Tobago because we don't produce enough oil. But you see, once again, it's all about management. Outlining the energy sector's performance over the past year, he said the industry has recorded steady growth following its stabilization phase. Among the key milestones, the minister highlighted the national gas company's payout of more than $158 million in dividends to shareholders, along with progress on projects aimed and strengthening gas production. He also announced the advancement of what he described as the largest seismic data acquisition project ever undertaken in TNT. Dr. Munilal also pointed to renewed, and this is what is really important here, renewed energy cooperation with Guyana and Suriname, noting growing collaboration and future opportunities. Because remember, at this point in time, Guyana doesn't have their own refinery, and therefore they could be sending their oil here to Trinidad and Tobago when we reopen Petrotrin to refine it until, of course, because President Irfan Ali does have intentions to open their own refinery in Guyana in time to come. But we can benefit in the meantime, and therefore we could be generating a whole lot more US dollars foreign revenue than we are at this point in time, and that we have been doing since Petrotrin closed down a few years ago. I think it was back in 2018. I'm telling you, people don't understand. Petrotrin was the backbone of the energy industry, and by extension, the backbone of our economy. We cannot just continue depending on the energy industry to govern a nation. We need to do like Guyana and utilize that added funds in order to be able to diversify the economy, but while also holding on to the energy industry and expanding it, investing in it, properly managing it.
We can now confirm that we have increased oil production from roughly 52,000 barrels to about 55,000 barrels, and that is a significant increase.
Outlining the energy sector's performance over the past year, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries Dr. Rowley Munilal said the industry has recorded steady growth following its stabilization phase. Among the key milestones, the minister highlighted the National Gas Company's payout of more than $158 million in dividends to shareholders, along with progress on projects aimed at strengthening gas production. He also announced the advancement of what he described as the largest seismic data acquisition project ever undertaken in TNT.
And we're extremely pleased with that. We are informed that almost 60% of that work has finished. And indeed, we would like to ensure that that finishes in good time by, let's say, August 2026.
Dr. Munilal also pointed to renewed regional energy cooperation with Guyana and Suriname, noting growing collaboration and future opportunities.
With the recent visit of Excellency Mohammed Irfan Ali and their commitment to Trinidad and Tobago and our collaboration, that is taking many forms, and some exciting news will come forward on that. There's a Suriname Energy Festival, Energy Week coming up, and we expect some more interaction with the government and people of Suriname.
Another major initiative highlighted was the establishment of the Energy Accelerator Hub, a cabinet-approved mechanism designed to fast-track approvals for energy projects.
The companies now are shocked by the speed at which we receive work permits given the Accelerator Hub and its work.
Policy changes have also been implemented to encourage activity in mature maritime fields, with incentives approved by Cabinet to stimulate exploration and production.
We have altered the policy to deal with what is called mature maritime fields, where we have actually given certain incentives to those companies that will work on exploration and production in mature fields.
Looking ahead, Dr. Munilal said government expects continued growth with further increases in oil output, greater gas availability and progress on large-scale developments such as the Manatee project.
We expect oil production will increase again by hopefully 5,000 to 7,000 barrels of oil per day. We also expect that we will have an expansion in gas availability in the next year, and certainly with the Manatee project is on the move in terms of its construction side, so that we expect that will be a big lift for the sector.
These developments, coupled with expected installation of a new compressor at Touchstone Exploration in Rio Claro, are expected to drive increased output and further strengthen the energy sector. Faith Chariot, TTT News.
Weather report for Saturday, April 25th, TH 2026, Trinidad and Tobago. General outlook. The forecast for Saturday is mostly cloudy with periods of rain and occasional showers. There is a 30% to 50% chance of isolated thunderstorms, primarily during the midday and afternoon hours. Conditions are expected to settle during the night despite some lingering showers. Temperature and humidity. High temperatures will reach approximately 28 degrees Celsius to 29 degrees Celsius, though high humidity will make it feel closer to 33 degrees Celsius. Overnight lows will be around 24 degrees Celsius. Winds and marine conditions. Winds will blow from the east to southeast at 5 to 30 km per hour, with higher gusts possible near heavy showers. Seas will remain slight to moderate, with waves reaching up to 1.5 meters in open waters. Hazards. The Trinidad and Tobago Meteorological Service warns that street or flash flooding may occur in areas prone to it during heavy downpours. Sunrise and sunset. Sunrise is at 5:46 a.m. and sunset is at 6:15 p.m.
Regional news now. President Dr. Irfan Ali has noted that Guyana is positioning itself for a major surge in tourism. Wonderful news, underscoring the country's expanding capacity to host international visitors and events. The head of state referred this during his remarks at the opening of the 4 Points by Sheraton Hotel at Houston Yards, Georgetown. The president said the opening is emblematic of a wider transformation taking place across the country. Development, progress, people. This, he noted, is driven by both public and private investments and further reflective of growing global confidence in Guyana's economy. The entire world is impressed by Guyana at this point in time. And why? God bless them with oil. And that's what the tribals and the socialists in Jamaica trying to tell Jamaica, don't. Climate. Don't ever get involved in the oil industry in Jamaica. If it has oil to drill, don't drill. Prime Minister Andrew Holness, don't ever listen to them. Drill, baby, drill. As the local tourism and hospitality sector in Jamaica continues to rebound from Hurricane Melissa, Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett says the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority will be the reset to unlock the full transformation on the South Coast Tourism Corridor. Pray for Jamaica because just now it's hurricane season again. Bartlett, who toured the South Coast Corridor on Thursday, said the legislation, which is now in its final stages of debate in Parliament, will provide the legal and institutional framework for what the government is calling the re-imaging of tourism following the hurricane. He said the framework will accelerate redevelopment, streamline investment, and reshape how coastal communities are integrated into Jamaica's tourism product, noting that the historic town of Black River in St. Elizabeth will be at the center of new development push, with plans to reposition it as a modern tourism hub. You know what will also assist? It's stop demonizing colonials in America and Europe and so forth. A lot of them will ignore it because they love the islands like Jamaica and so forth, Caribbean islands. But just imagine if you forgive and you forget about the past. The evils that did take place, but it took place on both sides. Africa sold its own while Europe bought. So it was wrong on both ends. If you put it in the past and forget about that and move forward and acknowledge the fact that because of colonialism, even though it had its negative aspects, we are living in healthy democracies here in the Caribbean, and you value Western civilization, rest assured a whole lot more conservative individuals living in America and Europe and so forth will feel more motivated because they'll feel appreciated. They wouldn't feel as though they're going to be targeted when they enter these countries and looked upon in any sort of way. They will have more desire. They'll feel inspired to visit your country, and therefore that will be boosting tourism in Jamaica and throughout the Caribbean. And tribal sorts of concepts and lifestyles and culture. Minister of Fisheries, Marine Conservation and Climate Resilience, Conroy Huggins, has underscored the urgent and tangible impacts of climate change on St. Vincent and the Grenadines, stating that the issue is not an abstract one for the country. Speaking at the opening of a climate adaptation action workshop earlier this week at Beachcombers Hotel, Minister Huggins emphasized the nation's vulnerability, noting that approximately 90% of critical infrastructure is situated along the coastline. This, he explained, places the country at significant risk from rising sea levels, coastal erosion, and extreme weather events. The minister further highlighted that adaptation planning goes beyond simply identifying vulnerabilities. Instead, he said it provides practical pathways toward resilience and sustainable development. I'm kind of in the middle of when it pertains to climate change. My conservative friends, because I am a Christian conservative, they kind of just rule out everything and they don't really support much of the transition into renewable energy and stuff like that. I like, renewable energy, but I also acknowledge the fact that we must continue using the fossil fuels as well, the non-renewable energy as the backbone of our economies and stuff. It is very important. It will take a long time before we no longer need fossil fuels. Maybe it may never end up happening. Rapture might take place before that. But what I'm saying is we need to be moderate. We need to protect our environment. We need to ensure that there's a limited amount of pollution, but we don't be radical and ridiculous that they are like the far left with the Green New Deal that has an issue with cows and cars. And yet I'm very sure that they will never tell the elites and even members of the media to not have vehicles, No, they will continue to enjoy modern luxuries while they want to tell the rest of the world to go back to the ancient days and caveman days. Bicycles, well, caveman days wasn't bicycles, but you know what I mean.
Sector adaptation plan also reminds us that St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as a small island, developing, vulnerable state, is highly exposed to rising sea levels, storm surge, and we have been experiencing these pretty frequently, coastal flooding, erosion, coral reef degradation, biodiversity loss, and a host of other climate-related pressures. These are not isolated environmental issues. They are development issues. They affect our food systems, jobs, settlements, infrastructure, public financing, and the stability of the sectors on which our people depend. The Coastal and Marine Sector Adaptation Plan includes 19 adaptation actions, while the Tourism SAP includes 21 adaptation actions. These actions were developed to address institutional, technical, financial, policy, and capacity gaps that are currently slow adaptation process in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Adaptation cannot remain a matter of policy, language alone. It must become visible in how we plan, how we regulate, how we invest, how we manage ecosystems, how we build infrastructure, how we support communities, and how we coordinate across government entities and with our partners.
The European Union has partnered with the Graham Hall Nature Sanctuary to plant 30 trees across the compound in observance of World Arbor Day. The General Manager, Jeffrey Roach, said the initiative is significant for Barbados biodiversity, highlighting the role of conservation efforts in protecting natural ecosystems. Friday's tree planting is the first in a series of activities planned by the EU to mark the 50th anniversary of establishing an office in Barbados.
This morning's planting is symbolic for us because the Graham Hall space is an environmentally conscious space, and the carbon reserves here at Graham Hall are significant. And while we welcome the opportunity with the EU to increase that through the planting of some trees and other decorative plants today, we want to encourage all Barbadians to be aware and be conscious about the importance of maintaining our carbon footprint. We look forward, certainly this morning, to engaging with the team, having some discussions, and certainly, as Steve would have said, as we move forward, we want to ensure that we build this partnership and strengthen it as we move forward.
The Bahamian government's One Tablet, One Child initiative represents a strategic shift towards digitizing the national education system by ensuring every public school student has a dedicated personal device. Doesn't that sound familiar? Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar started that way back in 2010, or at least during that first term in office. Recognizing that digital literacy is no longer optional, the program is designed to roll out in structured phases to ensure infrastructure and support can keep pace with distribution. Not to mention, I wonder if they have the funding to do that completely one time. Beyond merely providing hardware, the initiative aims to bridge the digital divide that persists across the archipelago, ensuring that students in remote family islands have the same access to modern learning resources as those in more populated urban centers. Good news coming out from Bahamas. International news now. A Republican congressman has not been seen on Capitol Hill in 49 days. Representative Tom Kean Jr. Last cast a vote on March 5th. His team says he has been sidelined by personal medical issue. Pray for him that he fully recovers in Jesus' name. His mysterious absence has sparked concern at a critical moment as the GOP is working with a razor-thin majority to push key Trump-backed legislation. Hopefully they keep that and increase that majority in the midterms later this year. Back home in New Jersey, Kean is also locked in a tight race as 4 Democrats compete to unseat him in a swing district. Wow, boy. Let's just hope that he recovers fully in Jesus' name and that the Republicans will maintain control in both the lower and the upper house in November later this year. The Trump administration's decision to impose sanctions on Hengley Petrochemical and approximately 40 shipping companies marks a significant escalation in its economic fury campaign against the Iranian terrorist regime. By targeting one of China's largest independent refineries and a vast shadow fleet of tankers, the U.S. Treasury Department aims to dismantle the financial infrastructure that enables Iran to export crude oil in defiance of international restrictions. Yes, people, it isn't just American restrictions. But anyhow, these measures utilize secondary sanctions to pressure global entities into severing ties with Tehran, effectively tightening a financial stranglehold intended to deplete funding for Iran's military operations and regional proxies. It's not really just military, it's terrorist operations and their terrorist proxies. This move not only intensifies the economic pressure on Iran, but also heightens diplomatic friction with Beijing occurring against a backdrop of naval blockades in the Strait of Hormuz and complicating the geopolitical landscape ahead of high-level U.S.-China summits. Yes, but thankfully Trump already, in my opinion, made a mistake by finishing the job in Iran prematurely. I'm not saying that he would have been able to ensure regime change, but destroy a whole lot more of the Iranian terrorist regime's infrastructure, not the population, people, not in the residential areas. We're talking about the Iranian, the Ayatollah, and the IRGC's terrorist infrastructure. But he didn't do that, but at least he's ensuring that he places a blockade there to place financial pressure upon the Iranian regime, and that's still good news.
Bible quote of the day. In Deuteronomy chapter 33, verses 1 to 5, the passage describes the blessing that Moses, the man of God, pronounced on the Israelites before his death. He said that the Lord came from Sinai and dawned over them from Seir. He shone forth from Mount Paran. He came with myriads of holy ones from the south, from his mountain slopes. Surely, it is the Lord who loves the people, all the holy ones are in his hand. At his feet they all bow down, and from him they receive instruction, the law that Moses gave us, the possession of the assembly of Jacob. He was king over Jeshurun when the leaders of the people assembled, along with the tribes of Israel together.
Folks, that brings us to the end of today's headline news. Thanks again to everyone who continues to support my content. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stay blessed and stay safe most of all. In Jesus' name.